Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Build Business Foundations Budgeting and Record Keeping Workshop. Again, we are doing this in partnership with the Seattle King County Workforce Development Council. I am Nichelle Smith. I am the admin coordinator with Build. Happy to see all of you here today, and hopefully that you can walk away with some information on how to effectively budget for your business or your organization or even personally, and then what it means to basically keep good records in relation to your business, organization, or even personally, and how those things can help you be successful, just long term and resilient. So I want to first kick it off. We have a few people here. I'm going to start with Abby Taft. She is the industry project manager with the Workforce Development Council. I'm going to hand it over to her just to do a little introduction for herself and the Empower Your Business series. So Abby, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great, thanks, Nichelle. So hi everyone, my name is Abby Taft. I'm an industry project manager at the Workforce Development Council of Seattle King County. Essentially with this Empower Your Business series, what we wanted to do at the WDC is, especially if you've heard about the Community Reinvestment Fund, essentially, we are really looking at small businesses, any which way we can try to support small businesses. And so one offering we are doing is these workshop series. And so we've partnered with different entities, one being Build 206, and we've just been doing some workshops, collaborating with different entities to really just provide, resources, whether it's, branding, compliance, anything that, tools you can take away to just help support your business and, continue it to grow, sustain, kind of whatever your small business needs. It's been really great. We've done one already with Build 206 around, hiring independent contractor requirements. And so, today we're going to be talking about, budgeting and record keeping. And so I know it's going to be a great, great content will be discussed. So I will just pass it off to you guys to share some great knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you, Abby. All right, so let's get it started. This slide is a little bit about Bill 206, and so I will hand it off. We also have Andre Franklin here, our director of Bill 206, and then just quickly before we go in there, we have Tiffany Hogg, who is here supporting Bill 206 with our webinar with Immunoservices. But I'm going to allow Andre to come off mute, introduce himself, tell you a little bit more about the organization, but feel free to read the slide to learn a little bit more about what Bill does in the community with this initiative and other initiatives similar to this. And Andre, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you guys could join us. My name is Andre Franklin. A lot of folks know me as Dre Franklin in the community. We're happy to have this partnership to be able to provide this information. This is an extension of our Build Black Wealth initiative, where we teach wealth building opportunities to the Black community, but we include everybody, BIPOC, people that are serving BIPOC community. So this was a natural fit for us to make this happen. We've been doing that initiative for a little over 3 years now. So really looking forward to sharing this information. And budgeting is important for business, personal, as well as everything else. So these skills that we're going to talk about here is going to be beneficial for folks individually. And a lot of times people end up budgeting their businesses the same way they run their personal budget. So these are good skills and opportunities for folks to have implemented the things that I've implemented in my personal life, things that I've implemented in my professional life, as well as, running a Bill 206, making sure that we're fiscally sound. We have our receipts, keeping copies of receipts, tracking things, making sure things happen. We're really excited that you guys have chose to join us. Hopefully you guys share this information with other people. That's the other piece about Build Back Wealth and these types of workshops. We're hoping that if we get the information out, people will share it with their networks, start conversations, creating a safe space for us to have conversations. So we want this to be interactive as well. So I'm sure Nichelle will kind of give an overview of how things are going to go. But if you have questions, drop it in the chat, raise your hand. We want to make sure that people are able to ask questions, because we know a lot of communities have been excluded from these types of conversations on wealth building and management and compliance and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're providing the space to share that information. And our hopes are that you'll share this with your guys' networks. We'll send you out an email with all this information. So don't feel that you have to take copious notes. And I'm sure I'm probably still in Nichelle's thunder. So I'm going to pass it to her because I'm sure she's gonna go over all this as well. But I'm glad happy you guys decided to spend your lunch and learn with us today. So hopefully this will be beneficial for you guys.
So we do want to break the ice, but just a real quick housekeeping. While you may see an option to do Q&A on your screen, we will be utilizing the main chat. So if you have any questions, any wonderings, any statements, just of what's worked for you as we go through this stuff, feel free to drop it in the main chat. We want this to be interactive, like we're trying to work together, build a network, and help each other. But to get started, so this doesn't feel like a flat wah 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 type of presentation. Put your answer in the chat. Is what are you really hoping to get from this workshop? Everybody here is at a different level of knowledge, of engagement, where you're at with budgeting. You might have done this before and just looking for some new tips and tricks. You might be completely brand new to this. So I'm interested to hear and see what you all are hoping to get from this. So we'll give it a couple minutes for people just to drop it in the chat. And Tiffany, if you want to just come off and share and let me know what people are saying before we move on.
Absolutely. Best practices for record keeping for their business and nonprofit, adding to skill, power of community info to share. We also have what I'm hoping to get from this workshop is helpful tools to aid in my new founded nonprofit, starting
Love
from
it.
scratch.
Love it.
Someone, Janine said they're a visual learner, just beginning a business, so open to it all the tools.
Love it. Okay. Well, we definitely hope that we can meet those needs today. And if not, as Andre mentioned, we will share all of this out afterwards because everybody does take in information differently, including this video recording. So if there's something you need to refer back to afterwards, listen to, yeah, sit with it, take your time with it. If you have questions on any of the resources that we send out afterwards, feel free to reach out to us and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. So today we'll go over just, how to budget for your business. And again, I'll name that while we're focusing on business, a lot of what we're going over today can be used personally as well just as business owners ourselves on this call, what you usually do in your personal life will impact how you operate in business. So that's just a good, thing to know is that how you operate personally is going to impact what goes on in your business life. So these are things that you can hopefully, kind of bridge the gap with personal and professionally. And then we'll walk through just creating an easy budget template. Build has taken the kind of guesswork out of it. We'll have an easy Google Sheets budget template that you all can look at. We'll walk you through how to use it and it's pretty low barrier, really simple. We'll also talk about some apps and things because we live in a digital world that might work for you. Again, we're not sponsored by anybody. We're just talking about things that have worked for us or that we've used personally. We'll go over record keeping for your business. Again, all of these things can help you personally as well. We'll make some time for Q&A and then we'll go ahead and wrap up and close out. So let's start about importance of budgeting. So a lot of you, I heard some people saying they're start from scratch and why, like I'm just trying to learn like what it helps with. So as Andre mentioned at the top, it's essential. As a business owner, it will help you manage your resources, track your income, track your expenses, and plan for future investments. And so while you might be starting from scratch or you might be at a midpoint or at a real stable point with your business, a budget just helps you know where things are going, what's coming in, what's going out, where it's committed to in advance, what it's committed to in the future. Or if you're looking for people to invest in your business, whether that be I need a loan from a bank, I'm looking to have an angel investor come on, whether it's a group of people who want to invest in what you have, your ideals, your thoughts, it's good to know to be able to show, produce reports of, in here is how I am managing the resources that we have coming in. Ultimately, you want to have a budget to support informed decision making. It is easy to say I'm going to run out and buy something for my business, whether it be software, whether I'm going to invest in a vehicle, whether I want to invest in a staff member, things like that, and then look up and say, oh my God, I didn't realize I had these other bills coming out. Well, if you don't have a budget, it's easy to spend and then realize you didn't have it to spend. And so a budget is going to ensure that you know where everything is going. Emergency readiness, stuff happens. A lot of businesses were caught off guard in COVID. You didn't know what you were going to do, how much you had in savings, things like that. And so, again, we all hope that another pandemic of that caliber never happens again. But rather be ready for it, rather be ready, when something might happen, then it hits you and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how much money I'm going to have. Can I sustain? Do I have 3 months worth of budget ready? Reinvestment of profits. As you make money, it is not to put in your pocket and spend. You have to realize what you have to put back into your business as you're making it. So a portion of it has to go back. You got to reinvest supplies, people, contractors, fuel if you run a fleet of vehicles Um, Budgets also help attract new investors. If I'm looking to invest in somebody's business, I want to know how you keep up with your money because essentially you're going to ask for my money, and that's going to be something you need to prove. If you get grants and things like that, I heard there's a couple of people with nonprofits. Guess what's going to be needed? A budget. They're going to want to see how you're going to utilize the money that you've been awarded, and whether that's upfront, you telling them how you're going to use it, or post, you showing them how you used it, a budget will be needed. It's going to improve your goal setting. I need to know what I'm going to do with my money to know where I'm going to go to. I can't say I want to be $1 million business or I want to be a nonprofit that's going to generate $1 million worth of grants and funding if I don't know what I have today. So again, you have to plan out with what you have before you can plan out for what you want to come. Debt. Debt is a big thing. A lot of new business owners will take on all the credit, all the loans, and then you're like, oh shoot, I didn't budget for how I'm going to pay it back. So all you know is that you have the money come in, but you got to make sure that you know how it's going to go out and how you're going to pay it back. As I mentioned, financial decision making is always going to be key, and saving money. A lot of business owners don't realize it is nice to have a savings account. So again, what you do personally should always reflect how you do professionally. So making sure that you're setting some aside for those rainy days. Things will happen. Things will come. Something will break. Something will stop working. You'll be like, oh shoot, do I have enough to go immediately replace it, or do I have to wait because I really didn't save? And also saving money for taxes. Please, people, if nothing else, put away 15% in your budget for taxes if you're making your own money. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And then again, just budgeting will help you have visibility into seeing where the money is going. And so I do want to pause there. Andre, do you want to just add in some things? Just budgeting has been important to like the maintenance of build or even in your professional life with your job that has helped you keep track of things.
Yeah, definitely. Like the tool that we're going to share, I have my own personal tool that I made for like my personal finances. So I track like internet bill, garbage, electrical, water, taxes, maintenance, and insurance on my property, just so I can kind of budget out like, hey, this is what the projections are, and then kind of make adjustments. And then I also have what's miscellaneous. So there's always things like Michelle talked about. There's always things that are kind of unplanned. That gives you some flexibility in making those things happen. So I, carry those types of things over to running the organization. As you see, I got a folder back here that's like reverse chronological order. So when I get receipts or invoices or things, we file them in the folder. And then after the year is up, we're able to put those away on the shelf. And if anything happens, we get audited, we're able to quickly go grab that folder and have that information easily accessible to figure out what transactions were for what. Also, with Build, we use QuickBooks. So a lot of information is in QuickBooks, so making sure you're putting notes, comments, things like that in there. But when we first started, we were just using Excel, spreadsheets, Google Sheets, things like that, and just making sure you're putting notes in there, what it is, save your receipts. And same thing with the personal. If you're running a business, you want to save your receipts, you want to track your mileage, you want to do that things because you can write that off when doing your taxes. And as Michelle said, I'm sure she's going to talk about this later. If you're taking any 1099 income or you're working as a contractor, you definitely want to make sure that as in your budget, you're pulling some of that money out to save or invest or put in a CD or things like that where you can get some gains from it. But you want to make sure that money's available when it's time to pay taxes because the IRS is going to be looking for that to happen. So we'll be sharing the form and sharing information out, some of the spreadsheets and things later on. Michelle will walk you through on how to use it. It has formulas and stuff built into it already. And then when we email out, people will be able to download. Also, I want to say too, at the end of this, we're going to have a survey. We want people to participate in the survey. It's kind of a follow-up to the survey that you guys filled out when you signed up, and we will be emailing out to one person at random who fills a survey out $100 bill gift card. So we want to incentivize you guys because that feedback is important for us to get so we can process, improve, and make sure that what we're doing is actually hitting the target that we're looking for. So that's really all I have to say around that, is really making sure budgeting is important. Numbers matter. You want to make sure that you have your documentation in place. Even if the funder, I see some people have nonprofits and are writing grants in here. A lot of times the funders don't ask for receipts or things, but it's always good to have because they always can come back and ask or whoever funded them. Like we're seeing now with the federal government, they're going through all this process and they're looking where money's going. And so whoever the funder is giving them money may come and say, hey, we want to know where this stuff is. So it's always good to have good records. The IRS can audit, even a nonprofit, the IRS can come in and audit. You guys probably seen there's been a number of articles being written in KUOW about nonprofits and some things that are going on with finances, things like that. So it's always good to make sure that you have good record keeping and cross your T's and dot your I's.
Awesome. Thank you, Andre. Awesome. And so some of the things we talked about, these are just the risk of not having a budget. I'll say, like I said, personal equates to business. Personal unexpected emergencies. When things happen, you just don't have anything to lean on, and it becomes more of an emergency, which leads to you taking on more debt and doing other means to get the money that you need to resolve the emergency. Overusing debt, credit cards, and loans to support expenses. While yes, many businesses you will need to take on some kind of debt, additional capital to help you kind of get off the ground, hit the ground running, but it's just not having a plan for how you're going to repay that debt or taking on too much, not realizing that it can snowball. Inability to pay off or pay down debt. Again, credit card debt, can get you into a real rock and a hard place. And so it's just making sure you're using it mindfully. And then unable to make long-term plans due to lack of cash. You always want to have what's called liquid cash. What can you access today so that you can, act on the plans, act on an opportunity versus not having access to something because you're waiting for a client to pay or you got to wait for another grant to be awarded. So you always want to have a budget so you can look at what's called your liquidity, is that you have some cash on hand that you can always access. So when an opportunity presents itself as a business owner, you can be ready to go. And then with business, same things, inability to expand your operations, products or services, unable to secure loans or funding to support business growth. Sometimes banks or lenders will look at how do you manage your current money, and if it feels like you're a risk, they might not be willing to give you any more money to support your business. So you have to think about that. Overusing debt to support your operations. Again, you want to lean on debt to a degree, but it can't be your end all to be all. And then unfortunately, you see businesses in which they have to shut down because they have too much debt or just the inability to repay it. So again, just making sure that you're keeping track of your resources. If you have to take on debt, how you're able to repay it, excuse me. And then just making sure that you're planning effectively. And so, how to budget for your business. Of course, today we'll go over cloud-based tools, and we encourage you to try our Build 206 budget tool. But there are other things. Some people are, I'll say old school. There's nothing wrong with being old school. Pen and paper. It's, you have to figure out what works for you. Some people are like, I have a notebook and I have put my lines in my notebook and I'm keeping track, and that becomes the thing. Or if you're more digital, there are web-based smartphone apps. One I personally use for myself. Again, we are not sponsored in any way by any of these. It's called YNAB, or You Need a Budget. Or Build uses Intuit QuickBooks. Intuit QuickBooks, or excuse me, Intuit also has a personal. It's called, I think, Mint is their like personal app. But again, if you are tethered to your phone, as many of us are, those are things where you can take pictures of your receipts, easily categorize. It can work for you. But again, if pen and paper is your thing, all of these require a habit. It doesn't matter what tool that you're going to use, whether it be Google Sheets, whether it be pen and paper, whether it be a digital app, it is the habit. It is that you are going to make time to sit down to do it, to have an effective process to track your budget, because it won't work unless you do. So, on that note, I want to transition to talking about building your budget. Before I go there, Tiffany, are there any questions in the chat? Anything we need to address before we move on?
Currently, there are no questions in the main chat.
Okay, all good. Um, so Build has developed a simple budget tracker using Google Sheets. And some of you might be like, well, why Google Sheets? Why not Excel? Why not whatever else is out there? The reason is Google is simply the most widely used email platform or just platform out there. Most people, if not all, either have had a Gmail account, have a Gmail account, are able to access Gmail or G network, I don't know, the Google universe in some way. So it just presents as an easy way to provide a tool that most can use. Also, if you don't have Google, don't fret. If you are a Microsoft environment, that's what you use. Google Sheets can be downloaded into an Excel format so that you can use it if Excel is your thing. So what we want to do is get started. So don't feel like you have to write down all these steps. I'll quickly walk through them. But what we'll do is make sure that you're able to download the Google budget template. And again, we'll share all this out with everybody. There's also a guide. Everyone takes in information differently. So we have prepared it's like a 6-page guide, just kind of walks you through the how. Again, take your time with it once we share this out with you. And then we'll walk through creating budget categories so you can track your income and expenses, creating subcategories for tracking the expenses, decide what budget period you want to use. Some people are weekly, some people are monthly, some people are annually. I don't recommend annually unless you are just really on top of keeping all like your pen, like your receipts and stuff. Weekly or monthly would be ideal, but hey, you do what works for you. And then after you figured out this items, we wanted to get you started with creating and tracking your budget. So actually today, we're going to walk through it. We'll go through a couple how to add roles, just how to get started with it. We won't belabor it. But again, this recording will be available to you so you can come back to it. The guide will be available to you. And I will say this, I'll say, given your experience with an Excel-based tool, Google Sheets, a spreadsheet type of tool, it's pretty intuitive. It's not very difficult to figure out. But again, if you find yourself having trouble, you feel like you're stuck once you get your hands on it, please feel free to reach out so that we can help you because we want you to be successful with this tool. So I'm going to click out. And can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Can we see it? It's good. Okay, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. All right. So here we go. Here is the bill budgeting tool. Lots of yellow. You see, we like yellow over here. But yellow is just calling out where you would enter. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so we can kind of go over the instructions, and then I'll zoom out a little bit. But what this is basically we want you to be able to use this tool without issue. So we are asking that you enter your information in the areas that are shaded with yellow. We're trying to make this as user friendly so you feel like you can't break it. But if you do, it's easily fixable. Don't fret. So what we would want you to come in and do is it's set up for you to say, do you know how much you're starting with? And you would put your starting balance, whether you have a business bank account, whether you kind of know how much I keep in my personal account that's related to my business, whether you have your money in a shoebox under your bed, that's your business. But however, we want to know what we start with to be able to budget it out. So for this business, let's call this Nichelle's business. I have $82,000. Ooh, I'm over here doing some things. I'm rich, rich. So we're going to start with that. That's what I'm starting with. And then what you see is that we've assigned categories. These categories can be changed. So everybody might not have a payroll, everyone might not have utilities, but technology, licensing, and fees, those are a real thing. If you're operating in the city of Seattle, you have to pay for your license. Same with the state of Washington. If you do have staff, you might have L&I fees, things like that, ERO fees. But advertising, if you're paying for social media, boost posts, things like that, marketing, I say payroll slash taxes. These are actually if you have staff and you have to pay those taxes, or you might want to use it for something else. Shipping and transport, if you're operating where you're dealing with tangible goods, things that we're selling, clothes, beauty products, any things like that, you might have those costs. And as Andre mentioned earlier, other miscellaneous, this can be whatever you want it to be, but feel free to make this your own. So we're going to stick with these categories just for the purpose of the demonstration. But let's say I know on a monthly basis, and we're going to do this on by a monthly basis. And as you can see down here, we've structured it with tabs. Make it your own. Maybe you do it by a week. Maybe you do it annually. Don't recommend that, but you can make this your own, and there'll be instructions on how you can edit it. But for payroll, let's say I know in a month, I need to spend $10,000 on payroll. And for my utilities, I know I want to budget at least like 5 grand. I got a lot going on over here. In technology, I love to buy a new iPad every now and then. So I'm gonna put, let's say, 3,000 for technology. Um, so what it's showing you right here is this is what you're setting as your budget. This is what you have available. It's going to be green as long as you have money remaining. And when it flips to red, we all know what being in the red means. It's not where we want to be. So what you would come down here and do is say, okay, vendor, I'm going to use my friend Tiffany as an example. I'm paying Tiffany for her services today. She is my payroll, and we'll say payroll for workshop support. Right? So what am I going to pay? Tiffany's like, the amount better be right as she leaves. So let's say we're going to give Tiffany $2,500. We'll talk about this later. Um, So as you see, as I entered the $2,500, it shows up here. It's calculating it. to demonstrate that that has been used. And you see that number went from 10,000 down to 7,500. And then it says, well, what percentage of my total expenses is this? Right now, it's all. This is what I spent for this month. This is everything. And then if we scroll over, I'm gonna try not to scroll too fast to give people whiplash. But what it is doing, it's saying, hey, right now you told me you started with $82,000. You budgeted $18,000 worth of expenses. That's what you told me you're going to spend. And to date, you've spent 2,500. This is what you got left. And right now, that's presenting as we're on track. You haven't overspent. You haven't busted your budget. And then my ending balance is saying this is what you have left of that starting 82. What you've spent, you have 79.5 left. And this is going to keep a running balance for you. So as we're going through, I'm like, okay, I got 79.5 left, but I might say, oh shoot, for Tiffany, I need to take out taxes. Or I pay taxes for the state for Tiffany. So let's say I had to pay 150 to the state for taxes. What happened? You saw the red pop up. Now, why did the red pop up? I didn't budget for payroll taxes. So it's saying, hey, you didn't consider this. And the red is just to kind of scream out to you, something's off. Check something out. Look at it. But overall, still saying we're on track. We still have enough money to spend. My running balance is good. I'm not out of money. So you can easily come back up here and say, got it, forgot to budget for Tiffany. I'm going to put $500 in my budget just to cover those taxes. And again, this sheet is going to continue to work with you as you work with it. It's meant to be fluid. It is meant to be adjustable. This is not meant to be rigid, because a lot of times what we find ourselves is that if something feels too rigid, not flexible, especially if you are a brand new business owner, it's not going to feel like you want to do it. It feels too constraining. Things change, things happen as new business owners, shoot, as existing business owners, that you need to go back and say, oh no, mid-month, I need to adjust my budget. So let's do another example. Let's come over here and say I went to the Apple store and I needed a new laptop for business. Now, if you purchase a laptop as of late, one with all the bells and whistles, they can get kind of pricey. So let's say I went and bought the best MacBook that Apple has to offer. Again, I'm just going to overshoot it for the example. What it's showing is that, hey, you blew your budget in this category. Not that I didn't budget for it, but I blew my budget. Now, naturally, what you should want to come do is look at your other budget categories and say, do I have enough to adjust? Can I add a little bit more there? Again, we're still on track. It's showing my running total. I still got 75.6 to play with. What can I do? And with this, we hope that you will come and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my budget. I'm not going to have to buy anything else, but I'm just going to clear it out. I spent what I budgeted. It's taking it out. And what that's allowing you to do is to ensure that you don't commit money elsewhere that needed to be committed to a specific category. So we're basically net zeroing this to say 3750 was committed to technology. That money's gone. That money is spent. We're good. Move on to the next. What you need the license for, or excuse me, what you need to track for licensing fees, advertising, payroll taxes, utilities, things like that. And what you would just do at the end of the every week, every time an expense comes in, come in here. You might say, City of Seattle Light, business electricity, if you actually have a brick and mortar. And I'm gonna say utilities. Say the bill was $12.50. I hope nobody's bill is $12.50 from Seattle City Light. That's excessive, but you can keep going in. And what if I actually get money from a client? I'm gonna use somebody I know on the call, Sarah. I'm gonna say you paid me for something, because I see you on the call, and it might be, invoice payment for event. I'm not gonna charge you too much, Sarah. But Sarah, let's say Sarah paid us $7.50. So that's income, that's money coming in. So this is going to, what it's going to do as everything is detracting, this is now increasing our running balance. So you saw it go from 74,350 because it went down to now it's 75,100 because it went up and we had money. So again, this is to track both income and expenses. So what's coming in and what's coming out. And so again, at the end of the month, what you truly want to be able to see is green. We want to be on track. This is not to say at the end of the month you need to have a crap ton of money left. There are going to be some months where you're like, I just made it by the hair of my chinny chin and we got $5, but we're in the green. Some other months might be really good where it's like, no, we actually had a profit this month and I can roll that over to my next month and that might become your starting balance. So whatever you end with, you could then roll it over to your next month as your starting balance. And again, it's just building the habit of, I know what I'm ending with, I know what I'm starting with, and I'm tracking. And so again, it is to build healthy habits, It's not going to feel easy at first. If this is something that you've never done, or just not used to it being a constant habit, it's okay. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. We ask that you play with the tool, make it yours, break it, email us. I broke it. How do I fix it? Until you get comfortable with it. And then once you get comfortable with this might be your thing. Or you might graduate to something else that feels more robust, that gives you reports. There's things that give you dashboards as you build and grow within your business. But again, our goal is just to give you something to start so that you don't have nothing, and at least can go from there. And also, the hope is for those who do have nonprofits, even if you don't have a nonprofit, whether you're getting a fiscal sponsor, going after a grant, that this becomes an easy way for you to plan out for what you want to do with any money that you might potentially be awarded. So it makes it that much easier to apply for grants and funding and things like that, or show and demonstrate, hey, this is what we're spending our money on. This is where we could use some support and help from there. So I'll pause on that before we go back to the presentation. Are there any questions that can be easily answered about how to use this? Again, we're going to share out a guide, but happy to answer any quick, easy questions.
There are two questions in the chat.
Okay.
One kind of goes back to talking about when you were speaking of receipts. From Daniel, his first question was, should we be keeping the physical receipts for the business or scanning it?
Okay, Daniel, I'm gonna put you on pause until we get to our next section, which is like a slide and a half away, because we will talk about that. And I'm gonna say this with everything, it is going to be what works best for you, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in just 1 second.
I'll hold the second question then. So these are just focused on the budget tracker. Okay.
Yes,
So no questions in the chat about
perfect.
the budget tracker.
Okay, then we will go ahead and click back into the presentation. Awesome. Okay, so just to wrap up this section about budget maintenance, again, as I said earlier, your budget doesn't work unless you do. So what I do recommend is create a timeline. How often do you want to do this? If you are brand new to this, it might feel excessive to start. I recommend every day just sitting down for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, put it on your calendar. If you live and die by your calendar, just to say, I spent money, I just need to track my money. If you spend it, we need to track it. If weekly works for you, that's fine. Set your receipts, set those things aside. If they're coming into your email, make a folder in your email, just so that you know I carved out this time, whether it be, end of week, midweek, whatever works for you. And then monthly, I would say wait to move to monthly until like you're really into your habit. When you got this down, monthly will feel better, but until then, I don't recommend monthly for somebody who's just starting out because it can easily get away from you. And again, what happens is that if you build up too much and you're like, oh my God, I lost track, I got too many receipts, it can feel overwhelming. And the goal is for this not to feel overwhelming. Um, Reconcile your expenses to your financial institution. So as you're getting your bank statements, go through, double check. Did I track everything that actually went out on my debit card? It is so easy to tap, Apple Pay, do all the things. For some reason, when I Apple Pay, it's like the money doesn't exist. It just comes out of thin air. I don't know whose money I'm spending. It's not mine when I'm tapping to pay. But it is easy to allow it to get away from you with digital payments, because sometimes there just is no physical receipt and we're just tapping, we're paying all the things. So again, make sure you're reconciling to your bank account, and then refreshing your budget as often as your income changes. So if you realize, hey, this month money's going to be different for my business, go back and look at your budget. Your budget for the previous month should not look the same if your money has changed. If money is good, things are coming in, you got an award, you got new clients, then your budget needs to reflect that. It might need to shift because you might need to spend more because now we're doing more things. So again, always refresh it, revisit it as often as you need to, or just because you're like, hey, I want to make some changes. I want to, improve my habits. And then keeping receipts and records of each transaction will make it easier to go back and say, yep, did I track it? And go from there. So moving forward, we're going to transition into record keeping and talk about, and hopefully we'll address some of those questions that were in the chat too, Tiffany. So the importance of record keeping, similar to budgeting, is going to be, monitoring your expenses, legal and tax compliance, and we will get on that. Decision making, just as with budgeting, it will help you understand what's going on. Enhance efficiency. If you see it, you know where it's going. I know what I'm doing. I can change my habits because I'm like, ooh, these receipts are reflective of like I'm doing too much, or might not be doing enough, or I'm buying the wrong things. And then financial planning, when you can see it, you can plan effectively, and ultimately we want you to be resilient. We want you to have a better financial plan for your business, even personally. Sometimes you see receipts and you start to realize like, oh, I'm just randomly buying stuff. And again, what makes it difficult is sometimes digital receipts don't allow us that transparency versus when you have physical receipts that are kind of stacking up or you put them in an envelope or something like that, it might feel a little bit more real that the money's being spent. So overall, it is important to keep it, and we can talk about the methods in which you can keep your records. So along the lines of the questions, how should I maintain my records? Again, there's so many methods, and it's going to be on like picking the method that works best for you. Cloud-based storage. There is Dropbox, there is Google Drive, there's Office 365. Um, Keeping your records here again requires a step and a habit. You have to get the record, the receipt. You're going to have to transfer it to whatever method of cloud you feel you want to use. There's naming conventions, the structuring, the folders. So, not to say that it can't work again as you're starting off. I would say if you're going to set this, this is something you want to do foundationally. So, you start strong, you end strong versus some people might want to say, that's I don't have time for that. Maybe you need to start out physically with keeping physical receipts and then transition to that where you're scanning and things like that. But I would say if you're going to look towards a cloud-based storage solution, um, like start strong. Do a couple folders, and as you grow, you might add and go from there. And you just create a foundational habit of what you need. Physical receipts. There are sometimes we get invoices, things like that. I would say if you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong with keeping physical receipts. As Andre named, Build has a big, beautiful binder that it keeps of all the receipts and invoices and things like that. And while it may seem archaic to some, might seem old school, it works because guess what? You can flip to a page, you can pull it. If you keep them in a folder in a file cabinet, you can pull the file cabinet open, pull the folder out. It makes it that much easier. Excuse me. So again, everybody's going to work differently. Don't let someone else's method determine how you work for you. It's going to be what feels right for you. If you're someone who needs to physically see the receipt or physically see the document to be able to track, meaning it needs to sit on your desk somewhere, it needs to set aside so that you know I have to get to this. And I'm very much that way. I need to set it aside. I need to visually see it. And then once I do it, I can file it away, scan it, whatever works. These methods are fluid. They can work with each other. So again, you might start off physical, then the physical becomes the digital and it goes into Google Drive, whatever, and you'll build that habit, whatever works for you. Same with smartphone apps. Again, saying what I use, you need a budget, Nerd Wallet, free, good budget, free. These are things you can use, but guess what they usually start with? Either there was a physical transaction, something. Some of them actually work with your digital transaction, but some of them you might actually take a picture of the receipt and keep it. So again, you're going to figure out what works for you. If you are tethered to your phone, smartphone apps might be it because you're making that transaction, you're tracking it right there in real time, done, out of sight, out of mind. If you're a person where you're like, I got to go through my work bag, I got all kinds of stuff and receipts in here, pull them out, put them in an envelope, set them aside so you get to that time where you're going to track. If you are somebody who is truly on it and you're real digital, take the picture, upload it, whatever is going to work for you. And all of these can work in tandem together. It can be this and it doesn't have to be this or. So hopefully you'll figure out what works best for you and we'll go from there. So I'm going to pause right there, Tiffany, because I know you said Daniel had a question about which is best. So, Daniel, I'm going to say to your question, it's going to have to really live with what works for you. If you are a person who you're like, I need to physically touch that piece of paper to know I need to do something with it, I would say lean towards physical receipts, and then eventually you might migrate to a cloud-based storage or where you do want to scan them and save them on your computer or like an external drive. But I would say it's going to have to be what feels right for you to start. Um, and then migrate. And sometimes we come back to things. I've tried digital and I'm like, nope, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the physical because this worked for me. So it's okay to try and what we call fail fast and then go back to what feels right and, and what's working for you. So, Tiffany, what
So,
was the other? Oh, go ahead, Dan. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, sorry, just to follow up on that, the reason why I kind of asked around that is like, because I'm thinking like, okay, do I literally bring a box full of receipts to a CPA when it comes down to tax season, or do they prefer to have everything through email and digitized so I'm getting ahead of it, you know? I do like
Got
to
it.
fill a paper, but I also don't want to, I want to do an easy process when it comes to tax season, pretty much. So do they, I don't know if most CPAs accept me just giving them a whole bunch of, physical receipts, or if traditionally speaking, they want it like scanned and uploaded as files. That's kind of my thoughts, my thought process around that question.
Okay, so I'm gonna say whoever you chosen as your accountant, CPA, your tax professional, is a conversation. So as someone who actually I have tax clients, I have to figure out what works best for them because guess what? I don't have to track it every day. So if somebody comes in and they're like, Nichelle, I'm a physical receipt person, I'm not going to say it doesn't come without additional cost because there is work where if you brought me a box of receipts, yeah, it's just time. But if that is the best way we track, then let's talk about how we can make this work best. Maybe it's like, hey, Daniel, I need you to put this in individual envelopes for me. But if this works for you, we got to figure out a method to this madness. For I would say preferably digital is always going to work best because most tax preparation software has transitioned to be digital, and it is really easy to be able to pull in those receipts and things like that to look at them, or working with you in some way of like, hey, if you are using something like the build budgeting tool, where you can share that with your accounting professional to say, and let me see how you've been tracking, and I'm matching up receipts, things like that, an Excel tool, so that we can work to capture your expenses effectively, to be able to report them out on your taxes. So I would say there's a conversation to be had with whoever your professional is, but again, that professional doesn't have to do this for you every day. So again, it has to be something that works for you to be able to own that habit. But then at the end is that they're willing to work with you to say, and how can I easily get that information, and developing a system for end of year tax time. Does that help?
It does. Thank you again for your time on that. To that point, like if I've like lost a receipt of that transaction that I made, do you know if typically like if I was able to find a bank statement, is that acceptable, or I need to have the receipt to account for it?
Again, the receipt's always going to be preferable, but yes, if you have a bank statement that has a record of the transaction that can basically say, yes, this was purchased, you might, like I said, depending on the amount, what it was for, how you're using it to apply to your taxes, you may want to include like what they call a statement of attestation, basically saying, and this is what this was for, this is how this applied to. And I say that especially if you have a bank account that is blending both personal and business expenses together. Don't recommend it, but everybody's at different points in their business journey. So yeah, but a bank statement, as long as there's a record of the transaction, can be used.
Can you repeat that again? You said statement of what?
Attestation, basically, you are attesting that this was an actual business expense. That I'm just not trying to use something just for the purpose of using it to like reduce my taxable income.
I'm going to add something to that.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Trey.
going to make
I
a
mean, Andre.
recommendation that you definitely put notes on your receipts or have a sheet of paper, take them on a piece of paper and put them in a folder. That way it's organized. If you do bring it to a CPA, you have it like chronologically ordered instead of that's going to cut down on time that they're charging you for. So if you want to do physical, and then if you are going to do electronically, I recommend the same thing. You have some kind of process that you understand, naming the receipt, maybe the category, what it is, the amount, dating it, and then maybe even like we do things electronically. We may have like 2025 January, so all the receipts for January are going in that folder. February, March, so there's a process to it. Because otherwise it's going to be really hard to remember what is what. And a lot of times when if it's an audited process, they want itemized receipts. So make sure that if you're, purchasing things, they want to know what it is. So sometimes we get the credit card slip that just has the total amount. You want to actually get the itemized receipt. So like Nichelle said, it's not really one way is better than the other. It's really what works for you. But I think the more organized you can be and the more notes that you have, or, kind of say this is what this is, what it was for, then if you do get audited or your CPA or whoever has a question, it's kind of more clear on what's going on there. And remember, you may get something from 2 years ago. You're looking at a receipt from somewhere and you're like, I don't know what this was for. So the notes or the category will also help you in the situation if you got to recall something at a later date.
Thank you, Andre. And then Tiffany, I just want to make sure. I know you said there was
Appreciate.
another question in the chat. No problem, DJ. If there was another question in the chat,
Did you answer it during that session?
yes,
No. Did you want me to go ahead and ask it or
yeah,
wait?
that's fine.
How do you expense utility or home office when you work from home?
Okay, that sounds like that's a little bit more tax related, I'm assuming. Okay, we're gonna
That's
hold
what
on.
it sounds like.
Yeah, we're gonna hold on to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
And this one is also tax related. Do you
Okay.
still need to file taxes if my nonprofit made no revenue or net income? Is it mandatory?
Okay. We're gonna
If
hold
your
on to that one.
nonprofit is awarded multiple grants from different funders, do you use the same budget tracking spreadsheet or separate sheets for each funder?
That's a good question. I would recommend
Mm.
that if you are tracking two separate grants, that you have a tracking sheet for each of them, based on like what you might need to report out to them. So I would recommend keeping something separate. Now, for your internal money, Again, Build uses QuickBooks, and so the way QuickBooks can be structured is to have different projects, different things like that, so you can categorize your money. However, outside of that, we do use Excel-based trackers that are specific to the grants that we work with, so that as we're working with grant managers, project managers, things like that, we're able to communicate directly with them like this is specifically what's related to this project or this grant or this program. And it's easily to, it's easy to share things like that. It just makes it quick and easy to be able to see like how much we have left, how we're trending, things like that. Okay. So business record keeping for taxes, because we got a couple tax related questions, and guess what? Taxes is due in about 2 weeks. So again, personally, what we do personally usually impacts us professionally. And I want to name this. Most of the time, if you have a small business, your personal taxes and your business taxes are combined, usually via Schedule C. So they kind of are one and the same. So it's just keeping everything together. If you have a nonprofit, that is something separate that you would have to do, whether you are filing your postcard return or you are doing a 990 because you have crested over a certain amount. So we'll talk about that. But ultimately, keeping an accurate record of your income, accounting of it, where it's going, what's coming in, what's going out. Again, a budget tracker will help you with that. An accurate record of your home expenses to report your home-based business costs. So yes, if you do work from home as a result of your business where you are the owner, the operator, yes, you do want to keep your utilities, you want to keep your receipts, your internet bills, your cable bills, your electricity bills. If you are renting your home, a portion of that can be applied as a deduction towards your home-based business cost. So you want to keep all of that because while all of it cannot be attributed to your taxes and bringing down your taxable income, a portion of it based on the space that you use in your home can be attributed to that. But again, keeping those records, I know a lot of times we get our cable bills, um, light bills and stuff digitally. If they're coming to your email, just put it in a folder. If it's on auto pay, things like that, and you don't, pull it down, put it in a folder, or, make a habit of pulling down the PDF, putting it in a folder, things like that, keeping those records so that at the end of the year, to the point that Andre made, it's just easy to like put it in a folder. This is all of January, or this is all of my internet bills, or this is, however you want to do it, to easily keep those things together. And then also with your personal taxes is keeping track of understanding how much your taxes might increase if and when your income increases. So as we talked about earlier with budgeting, is that as your money comes in, it is nice just to go ahead and set aside that 15.3%, just in case. And keeping your records because again, rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And those of us on this call who have businesses have been there and done that. It never feels good when you get taxed at tax time because you're like, shoot, I forgot. And then business taxes is just helps with record keeping because you understand your profit and loss for the year. And so I'll come up with, I heard somebody mention net zero, and so we'll address that when it comes to a nonprofit. And then keeping an accurate record of costs and expenses by categories for ease of tax reporting. So the question that Daniel brought up, how should I be gathering these things and keeping them so that it's easy to transfer to whoever your accounting professional is at the end of the year or your tax professional to make it that much easier. And then same thing as personal, tracking your incoming revenue so you know what you might have to pay in taxes, if anything. And then it just saves time and money when preparing your taxes. As Daniel mentioned, yeah, you could bring somebody a box of receipts, but it's going to cost you. You're paying for somebody's time to be able to do the things that if we can build good habits up front, it saves you money on the back end from having to pay somebody to sift through all your receipts and try to make sense of what you already know to be true. So those are just some tips. And so I saw a hand go up. If you want to come off mute or put your question in the chat.
I was thinking about storage when you were talking about everything that you can deduct.
Yeah.
I was just curious about storage, like if you're storing your office supplies and not at home, but in a separate storage utility
Yeah,
place.
if you have like public storage or something like that, like if you're paying for a rental storage unit.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that can definitely be a business expense. So you would want to retain those receipts that you're paying them every month to be able to include that as an expense that would go towards your taxes to reduce your taxable income at the end of the year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. So these are just a few of the things. And again, don't feel the need to screenshot. We will share all this out of some of the things that small businesses or big business, that you can potentially deduct on your taxes. And so again, While all these things are listed on here, there are certain nuances that go into them. So please don't take this as like grain when you see business vehicle expenses. There's some details that go into that and things that you need to accurately track and keep in the type of vehicle, type of mileage, things like that. But these are just kind of like generic categories that can be used as tax deductions. As always, the recommendation is please talk with a tax professional before doing something. We don't want anyone to be like, "And my refund was $82,000 and now you're going to jail." Like, no. Please make sure that you speak to somebody, that you're doing it right, that you're keeping your receipts. Because what the goal is while it is a beautiful thing to be able to get a refund, it is also a beautiful thing just not to owe. And that's the thing is that you just want to make sure that you know what you could potentially owe or that you don't. And you might have a great year where you made profit and you might owe a little bit. That's the name of business also too, is that you're in business to make a profit if that's the type of business that you have. And so yeah, you want to be able to do all the things and be prepared. And then the question around somebody said, do I need to file a tax return if I net zero for the month, basically, if I didn't bring anything in for a nonprofit, or maybe what we brought in, we spent? The answer is still yes. As a nonprofit, all the returns are considered what they call informational returns, less about any profit generation, more about you showing that you are demonstrating good stewardship over the funds that you received as a 501c3. So yes, even if it was like we netted zero this year, it is fine. It is just an informational return to let the IRS know we were in business. We might have received a few donations here, or guess what? We just had no activity this year. It just goes on your record as an informational return. So yes, regardless whether it was a great year for your nonprofit, a net zero year, bad year, not really a bad year if you're a nonprofit, it's just like you might not have brought in as much as you wanted to. You still want to be able to report that out and go ahead and file a return. If you are bringing in under $50,000 a year, and I'm saying this loosely, that might not be the amount, it's an informational return, which is a postcard. If you're cresting over $50,000 a year in funding that you're receiving, or any kind of, what do you call them? Fundraisers, donations, excuse me, then you do need to look at filing a 990, which is a little bit more complex. And I would recommend that you seek out a tax professional to help you with that. It's not that you can't do it alone. There's just a little bit more intricacies to filing a 990 for a nonprofit. And there's some questions you might have. So we'll go ahead and move on from there. And so I know that we are coming up at time. I saw 5 minutes, which to me only means that we've been answering some great questions. This has felt really interactive. Tiffany, are there any really quick questions in the chat?
No additional questions at this time.
Okay. And what I want to say with this, and this is just to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time, when we share out the email, please feel free to respond and let us know if there's any questions. The survey link that is in the chat that Tiffany has placed there, there's a space to state that if you have any other questions that you felt were not answered or just want more information about a certain thing, that you can put that there and we're happy to respond as we prepare to share out all the information and the resources. And that survey will stay open and to and through April 4th, I think is the date. So you'll have more than enough time. If there wasn't a question that popped in your head today, but maybe you think about it over the weekend, please feel free to drop that in there because we do want to be able to help you and get you that information. And last thing, as we prepare to close out, we have our last and final workshop in our series with the Workforce Development Council on May 28th around minimum wage and payroll requirements. The event is free. Pre-registration is required, just as this. You can go to our link tree. You can go to our website at build206.com, labor standards, and register. Please feel free to share this out. I hope that you guys got something from this one. This is going to be more around just making sure that, one, you can afford to pay minimum wage, and that the payroll requirements for having staff or a team, that you know what they are in the state of Washington and that you can potentially meet them to grow your team. So it'll be lunch and learn. We encourage you to sign up. This information will also be shared via email, but hope that you found that this to be informative, that you gain something for this, and that you'll come to the next one or share it with somebody who you know can use it. So on that, I'm going to say a big thank you. I'm going to stop sharing. Andre, if you want to add some words of closing for our people here. And remember, $100 on the line, random, please fill out the survey. And so I'll pause there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michelle. Always well done. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Abby, for your partnership. Thank you, everybody, for spending your lunch on a Friday. I know you could be doing a lot of other things. Fill out the survey. Like I said, it's an opportunity for you to win $100, which you can make a budget for if you want to. Download the stuff. So we will be sending a follow-up email with all this information. The survey, the presentation will be in there, the budget sheet, the guide on how to download the budget sheet. And also, like you said, if you have questions, put it in the survey. shoot us an email, and we'll also be, as we get the information, we'll put together, if there's any questions that come up, we'll put together a quick Q&A to kind of answer any outstanding questions. But make sure you share this information with your community, with your network, to make sure that this is getting outside of the people who could attend it. The recording will also be sent, so you can have people look at the recording. It'll be on our website as well at build206.com. So yeah, appreciate you guys coming. Appreciate everybody's, Michelle, your hard work on pulling those all together and the partnership that we have, and continue looking to provide this type of information for community.
Awesome. Thank you guys, and we hope to see you at the next one. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Hopefully, no more tornadoes in the Northwest.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
No problem. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.